I'm John Honeycutt, a doctoral student with Liberty University Online, School of Behavioral Sciences. This presentation is for Psychology 525, Week 7. It draws from a paper crafted in Week 6 and uses the same research with some supplemental other research. At the end of this presentation, I'll explore some action items that potentially could be done to strengthen outcomes and improve the outcomes for at-risk youth, in particular those that are in the foster system. A strengths-based approach focuses on what's right with the youth as opposed to what's wrong. There's a growing level of research in this area. Still yet, there's some opportunity areas to more broadly apply what's been discovered and to do some additional research, which we'll take a look at in a few moments. Strengths-based approach places a strong emphasis on positive relationships and the hope and resiliency of the youth through a variety of techniques which are outlined in some of the research, such as specific praise from a teacher rather than general praise. Now, this is in contrast to a deficit-based approach, which is how we've traditionally instructed in our public education systems. These place a strong emphasis on the gaps, on what's needed, and some of that is required. It's really the emphasis that's important here, to emphasize strengths as opposed to deficits. That's what's in question. This rather complex slide shows Erikson's 8 stages, and what we're going to do is focus on the middle 4, especially stage 5 with adolescence. Industry, identity, and intimacy, all on the left-hand side, are elements that some, if not many, of our at-risk youth, and certainly those in foster systems, sometimes struggle with. And with stage 5 identity, we'll take a look at Marcia's model that draws from Erikson's theory and some ways that we might be able to strengthen and improve outcomes of youth in the foster system as they begin aging out, and other at-risk youth, such as those that are impoverished. Here are some aging out statistics. The most alarming one to me is that 4,000 every year become instantly homeless as they age out of state custody. 11,000 of these will not be gainfully employed until the age of 24. So these statistics happen every year. It's not all at once. It's staged throughout the 12 months. And I think there's some ways that we could mitigate these alarming statistics. Here is not the foster system, it's just impoverished youth in general, which are scattered throughout the state of Oklahoma. A similar map could be drawn for other southern states, and for that matter, probably all 50 states. Rural communities tend to have a higher or a disproportionate percentage of impoverishment, and the youth in particular suffer from this. Now, in the same way that those in state custody have limited opportunities to explore their world, so do these underprivileged kids in these rural areas throughout Oklahoma, where I live. The research that underpins this summary and the document from last week are listed here beneath 5 categories, but what's more relevant is the findings from that research. On the far left-hand side, the notion of materialism is something interesting that I had not thought of. So young people that don't have much often compare themselves to those that do, and many at-risk children find that gap difficult and struggle with it. Teachers have an absence sometimes of self-efficacy on how best to deal with youth that are struggling in that way. And that makes the education system lesser than it might be able to be otherwise. There are some trainings that have shown to be successful, but most of these are international studies rather than domestic, which we'll get to that in a bit too. Interesting here is Jesus' style of teaching through metaphor and analogy. It proves itself to be successful in many situations for strengths-based teaching. When families are involved, this presents itself as opportunities for improvement. And the advisory, there's several tools now that are recently created that can help with doing research. Now, where's the research gap? And we're going to show this through international studies. There's quite a few, and these are relatively easy to find in Western Europe, Germany, and Australia. There's not so much domestically in some instances, as we'll see in a moment, for adolescents. So pre-adolescence, during adolescence, and post-adolescence, there's descriptive statistics, but there's not many inferential studies with adolescents. Now, I think that's because domestically we have a lot of rules and regulations appropriately in place to protect those in school. They need parental approval, but also logistically it's more difficult to measure without the confounding variables what is occurring with our adolescents in middle and high schools. So there is some studies, but not as you would find them internationally. So we have to make some conjectures. If we use Marsh's four-quadrant model, is how I've drawn it here, to better understand the notion of exploration and commitment, the areas that potentially could be differently derived on different timings are listed on the right. This is probably not a complete list, but it's certainly a reasonably thorough list. So this coming together, my hypothesis is that if we apply domestic adolescent inferential research, this can mediate transgenerational trauma. Now, because there is not a whole lot of domestic adolescent research that is inferential for this purpose, I think we have an opportunity. And in particular, measuring foreclosure and diffusion as it contrasts to non-at-risk youth might be an opportunity area for research in one or more of these categories. And the next couple of pages, I'm going to focus on vocational opportunities, which are very perfunctory. And we'll take a look at these. This comes from, it's not academically researched or foundation, but it makes sense from the Foster Club in a publication 2019, where transaction packs are made with adults to help youth before aging out and then transitioning into the aging in process through planning and through coaching. This could be accomplished, I think, with the hundreds of thousands of churches all across the U.S. With the 21,000 youth that age out every year. So some type of transition pact potentially could make sense, and this deserves some additional research, in my opinion. And this is facilitating the exploration of impoverished youth and other at-risk youth. This is a real case study of with Cornerstone Crossroads Academy out of South Dallas, and the entire school was able to travel from Dallas up to Estes Park and see other states, meet other people, see other cultures, and all but two had never been out of their area in South Dallas. This was an inspirational opportunity for all of the youth, and the feedback was wonderful. This kind of thing can, and in my opinion, should be done for more of our youth. This is a photograph at the in Estes Park with the 20 young people that experienced that trip. And those kinds of things, I think, additionally could be measured more, but also applied more frequently. The references are listed here. And mostly, I want to thank you for taking a listen to this presentation, and I appreciate your time.